All right, good morning, everyone. Today, guys, we're going to take a look at standard form of a linear equation. Okay, standard form, recall from your notes in Mr. Lavarchuk's class, ax plus by equals c. Okay, guys, here a, b, and c are real number integers. Real number integers. Okay. A and B can't be both 0. Erase that. A and B cannot both be 0. Guys, as you guys saw in examples on Mr. Lavarchuk's notes, A or B could be 0. One of them could be, but both can't be at the same time. And then the third note was that A, or the coefficient of x, it cannot be negative. Okay. It is positive. A is positive, or it can't be negative. Okay. All right, guys. The fact that these have to be integers, making note of that. Fractions. We saw a couple examples of fractions, so I have a couple examples here where we're gonna have to clear a fraction. I thought those would be good examples to see. Okay, so I've got 4 examples of these types of problems we've been working on this afternoon. Okay, so here we have the standard form, and we're going to write the equations into slope-intercept form, guys, which we remember is y equals mx plus b. Guys, this is useful. Graphing from standard form, a little tougher than graphing from slope-intercept. So if you're given problems in standard form, oftentimes people will put those into slope-intercept form. It's easier to graph. Okay. So what are we doing, guys, here? We've got to solve each of these equations we're given. We've got to solve for y. Get y by itself. Okay? So how are we going to do that on number 1? We've got the equation x minus 3y equals negative 2. So first step, let's get rid of the x. Step 1, or not get rid of it, I suppose. We're going to move the x terms. Okay? So to get rid of positive 1x, we're going to subtract 1x. And we got to do it to both sides, because what we do to one side, we have to do the other. So this left side of the equation, it's going to cancel. You've got negative 3y equals negative x minus 2. Okay? Now to get y by itself, because now it's just a negative 3 times y, now we need to divide by negative 3. Divide both sides by negative 3. Okay, so left side, those cancel out, our negative 3. We've got y equals negative x divided by negative 3. That's a positive, negative divided by negative. So we have positive 1x over 3, or positive 1/3 x. Negative 2 divided by negative 3, that's going to be positive 2/3. So, guys, how I'd write that 1x over 3 and how it's typically written, it's just 1/3 times x. Okay, those are equivalent. So that's how I'd probably write that, and then just plus 2/3. Both the fractions are reduced, so we're in good shape. That would be our answer. Okay. All right, let's take a look here at number 2. 7x minus 6y equals negative 30. All right. So first step, again, getting rid of those x's. Move the x's. Okay, so moving those 7x, that's a positive 7x. We need to subtract 7x from both sides. Okay, it's going to leave us negative 6y equals negative 7x minus 30. Okay. Second step, we got to get rid of the negative 6. So much like the last problem, guys, we're just going to divide by that coefficient. Divide by negative 6. Both sides of the equation here. Alright, so negative 6 divided by negative 6, those cancel. Gives you y equals a negative over a negative. Again, that's going to be a positive 7x over 6. And then negative 30 divided by negative 6, it's going to be a positive 30 over 6 is 5. Guys, that last, just a notation thing. Right, and that 7/6 is its own fraction, so just 7/6 times x plus 5. And guys, you're going to notice that that's happening a lot of problems. We're getting fractions for slope. Guys, you can kind of skip over writing it like this if you're comfortable doing that. And just write it as 7/6 x. Okay. All right. So, guys, those two examples had fractions in them. Again, I wanted to include some with fractions because those are probably the ones where we might struggle the most. Okay. Did forget to circle that answer. All right. So that was going from standard form to slope-intercept form. These next two examples, we're wanting to kind of go the opposite direction. We're going to want to write them standard form. And if you notice, these are both given in slope-intercept form. Okay? So the first step in this problem, guys, if we're trying to get to standard form, we want the x's and the y's on the same side. Okay? So we've got to move 1/3 x. So to move the 1/3 x, we're going to subtract by 1/3 x, both sides. Okay? It's going to give you a negative 1/3 x plus y equals negative 4. Okay? Your second step is going to be, again, if you guys recall from your rules for standard form here, guys, a cannot be negative, it's got to be positive, and we need these as integers, so we also can't have fraction coefficients. Okay? Let's separate. I'm going to separate this into two separate steps. Here in a moment, I'll talk about how you can make this a single step. Let's work on clearing that fraction, that negative 1/3. So that's dividing by 3, so we've got to multiply by 3. And you got to multiply everything. That's the denominator here, guys. You're going to multiply the right side by 3, and you're going to multiply that left side by a positive 3. So again, why we are choosing 3 is it's, again, going to clear the denominator. So 3 times negative 1/3, that's going to just be negative 1x. Okay? The 3 times y, that's going to give us a positive 3y, equals negative 4 times 3, that's negative 12. Okay? And for this final step, guys, again, a can't be negative, a has to be positive, so here a is negative 1. We don't want it to be negative 1, so we need to, third step, divide by that negative 1. Okay, divide everything by negative 1. Again, so that's going to be the left side and the right side. Negative 1 divided by negative 1, those cancel, so it's just positive x. 3 divided by negative 1, that's a negative 3y. And then equals negative 12 divided by negative 1 is a positive 12. So just change the signs of everything. That is our final answer. That is in standard form. A is positive. They're all integers, no fractions, so we're good there. All right. As I did say, there was kind of an alternate way. I could kind of show you this as, let's go step, let's call it alternate. Step 2. Guys, if you would have went, let me rewrite that, what we had. I'll do it down here. We had negative 1/3 x plus y equals negative 4. That's what we had at this step 2 point, guys. That's when we multiplied by 3. We could have multiplied by negative 3, okay? And that would have cleared our fraction, okay? That would have cleared our fraction and our negative sign. Let me show you how. Okay, so negative 3 times negative 1/3. Now it's a negative times a negative, so that becomes a positive 1x. Negative 3 times y, negative 3y, equals negative 4 times negative 3, positive 12. So at that step 2, the alternate way, I said you could do it as 2 separate steps or just as a single step. But essentially, I guess I want to show you that's, again, the exact same thing we ended up with had we done it the other way as well. So kind of like Google Maps, guys. A lot of different routes you can take. Sometimes there's one that's maybe a little more efficient than the other, but the end result was the same. Okay? All right, one last example, guys. This might be my longest video yet, so let me get through this one here. Y equals 7/4 x plus 6 is our first step. We want to get rid of 7/4. Move, that looks like an x. Move our x's, so subtracting 7/4. So we've got negative 7/4 x plus y equals 6. Okay. This one will be somewhat interesting here. Let's try kind of like we did on that last problem, guys, where we multiplied by, what was it? It was negative 4. Or the alternate where we multiplied by negative 3. Let's go multiply by the denominator, which is 4, but let's make it a negative 4 to, again, we recognize that's a negative 7/4, and we want it to be a positive a. Okay, so doing that, let's multiply by negative 4, both sides of the equation. That's going to give you a positive 7x. The 4's are going to cancel, negative times a negative, okay? And then negative 4 times positive 1y, that's a negative 4y. Equals negative 6 times negative 4, negative 24. Okay, so again, we could have broken that up into 2 steps, multiplied by 4, divided by negative 1, but as we found out on the last problem, this was probably a little easier, a little more efficient. Okay, all right, guys, I've got 4 homework problems for you guys, 2 of each type. Okay, just for you guys to practice. Appreciate you guys watching. Have a wonderful afternoon.